Just days before the Barcelona Grand Prix, everything changed. The Formula One scene took a wild turn, and all eyes suddenly shifted to McLaren. This was the same McLaren that had looked nearly unbeatable first in Miami, where they ran with precision, then in Monaco, where their pace and strategy were almost faultless. But at Imola, they looked like a completely different team. The speed was gone, the control vanished, and the timing, too perfect to ignore. Right before the Imola weekend, the FIA quietly introduced 2 hidden technical rules. No headlines, no public statements, just silent changes slipped in. And suddenly, teams were scrambling. McLaren's drop-off didn't look like bad luck. It looked like someone pulled the rug from under them. And those in the paddock knew something was up. For a team that had just been flying past the competition, the fall was steep at Imola. They didn't just lose a few tenths, they lost their grip on the front of the grid. Red Bull, on the other hand, looked alive again. Their pace returned. Their issues disappeared. All of this, right after the FIA changed the rules in the shadows. If you think this all happened by accident, you haven't been paying attention. The first rule targeted something beneath the car. The skid blocks. These are thin pieces under the floor used to check how low a car runs. Until now, some teams had apparently been bending the limits, using materials that could flex or wear out during the race but still pass post-race inspections. It was smart, run lower, get better downforce, and stay within the limits. But the FIA had enough. They started checking randomly, stopped all flexing, and closed the door on clever tricks. Anyone cutting corners had to clean up quickly. Please confirm if this tone and structure works for you. It banned all kinds of indirect tire cooling tricks. No more special vapors, no strange chemicals that change state under pressure, no secret heat-reducing technology inside the wheel hubs. From now on, only natural airflow, the kind that comes from the car moving, is allowed to manage tire temperature. And if you're wondering who this change hit the hardest, the whispers in the paddock all pointed in the same direction: McLaren. For weeks, rival teams had been scratching their heads. While most drivers were sliding around, struggling with overheating tires, McLaren's cars seemed to stay balanced and stable, especially the rear tires. Even in chaotic conditions, their grip didn't fade. Red Bull had been watching closely. In fact, during the Miami race, they reportedly used thermal cameras to study how McLaren's tires behaved. And now, just like that, the FIA dropped a rule that directly cuts off any exotic cooling techniques. At Imola, the results spoke for themselves. Oscar Piastri put his car on pole, but he couldn't hold position past the first turn. His speed vanished. That edge McLaren had worked so hard to build was suddenly missing. Lando Norris, normally fighting for top spots, now looked like he was struggling just to stay in the points. The tire consistency that had made them shine a week earlier had turned into a major weakness. Everything that made the car strong, its corner stability, its race pace, even its ability to handle long stints, seemed to fall apart. Within one race, McLaren didn't just lose a battle on the track, they lost momentum, confidence, and maybe even their advantage for the season. And just as McLaren began to feel the pressure, Red Bull stepped forward like nothing had changed. Max Verstappen looked completely at home in Imola. It reminded fans of his 2021 form: clean, confident, and unshakable. The RB21 felt planted in every corner, smooth on exits, and totally in sync with the track. Whatever issues they had been dealing with earlier in the season, the lack of rear grip, small balance troubles, all seemed to vanish overnight. Team boss Christian Horner brushed off the timing, saying Red Bull simply found their pace again. No big deal. But too many, that explanation felt a little too neat. Everything clicked for Red Bull right when McLaren stumbled. That's a bit too convenient. Meanwhile, Red Bull advisor Helmut Marko didn't bother with any subtlety. The changes helped, he said, with a knowing smile. No hiding it. Just a direct shot, and the paddock took notice. Conversations started happening in hushed tones. Not in press conferences, but behind the closed flaps of hospitality tents. Engineers started comparing notes. Talk of simulation data, borderline designs, and clever Graria tricks began to swirl again. Teams who had been riding close to the edge of the rules now looked exposed, but none more than McLaren. They didn't just look like a team struggling with form, they looked stripped, as if someone had taken away the tools they'd used to climb to the top. And while they were trying to get their footing back, the FIA wasn't slowing down, because just as Imola settled, another technical rule change was already on its way. And this time, the focus shifted to one of the oldest tricks in the aerodynamic playbook: flexible wings. These flexi wings aren't new. Teams have been pushing their limits for years. But now, the FIA decided enough was enough. They tightened the rules, reducing the amount of allowed movement from 15 millimeters to just 10 millimeters. That might not sound like much, but in Formula One, small numbers often make a big difference. And guess which team's design landed in the spotlight again? Right, McLaren. Their front wing had been turning heads for a while. In online simulator circles, experts were already pointing out its unusual shape and behavior. Rumors swirled that McLaren had discovered something unique, something other teams couldn't quite replicate. Now, That small advantage is under threat. As the next race approaches in Barcelona, McLaren faces a new kind of fight. It's not just against Red Bull on the track anymore. They're also battling doubts, technical pressure, and questions about the legality of their innovations. Because when a team starts winning suddenly, people don't clap, they start investigating. McLaren's public stance has been clear. The car is legal. The rules didn't change. They say just got more specific. But not everyone is convinced. The timing of their slump is too sharp. The drop in performance is too obvious. Internally, pressure is starting to rise. Piastri may be grabbing attention with pole positions, but it's Norris who's quietly racking up the points. The consistent results, the strong finishes, and in a championship fight, that starts to matter. More McLaren will soon have to decide, stick with the rising star, or lean on the one who delivers when it counts. This is where they thrive. In the middle of rule tweaks, suspicion, and controversy. They've been here before. Fuel flow, limits, cost, cap drama, floor height restrictions, and each time, they've come out stronger. Chaos doesn't shake them. If anything, it sharpens their focus. And now, with McLaren struggling to adapt, Red Bull senses an opportunity. Max Verstappen's confidence is back. The balance issues are gone. His car feels like an extension of himself again. The team's rhythm is back in sync. And just in time, because Barcelona is only the beginning. Behind the scenes, the FIA isn't done. More directives are said to be on the way. This time, targeting drag reduction systems, unusual, wing stall mechanisms, and even floor edge modifications. Every little gain, every technical trick, is now under surveillance. If your speed came from a rule gap, expect it to close. That leaves McLaren in a tight corner. They either prove their car is fast on pure merit, or they risk being remembered as a team that flew too close to the sun. If Imola was a bad weekend, they can bounce back. But if it's a sign of what's coming, their season could spiral fast. And with the grid this competitive, you don't get many chances. They'll need more than a strong press statement. They need to hit the track in Barcelona and show clear, clean pace. The kind that answers questions without saying a word. Because fans are watching, rival teams are watching, and most importantly, the FIA is watching. This year isn't just about being quick, it's about staying quick when everything around you changes. About building something solid, not just clever. The paddock doesn't reward hype, it rewards grit. McLaren thought they had everything figured out. Now, they have everything to prove.